Hello, the game has started. It's me to go first. I've got an unbalanced rack, just the solitary vowel, but I think a play of Wex is better than changing. Are there any alternatives to this? And I don't think there are. This is a pretty awful rack leave. Far too many consonants, so I'm reliant on drawing vowels, and Wex takes an E. So Wex for 26. Great, I do draw a couple of vowels, and I have bend let, which goes in a couple of spots at the moment. In fact, 3 spots, column 10 and rows G and I. Do I have anything through the central E? So this rack plus an E. Don't think I do. Now, which is my preferred spot? And there's actually more spots than I mentioned, because in row G, bendlet can play towards the left of the board, and it can play beginning above the E. So there are actually 4 spots for the bingo. But with only one word on the board, it's quite possible that all of those spots will be obstructed. If I don't have a bingo, then I'll be looking to play off the B for score somewhere. Now, what about this B above the E? Well, that stops 1 square short of column 15, and bendlet does take an S. So that would be against that positioning. However, if I play it to the left of row G, I'm not getting value from the X. Right, here we go. Bendlet certainly plays in row G on the left-hand side. Uoi takes nothing after it. Column 10 placement and row J placement have both been obstructed. So 3 out of the 4 spots have been removed. 1 remains. Do I have a bingo through the I? And that possibly could be a double-double. So I have the ibble ending. Not seeing anything there. No, not seeing anything, and double E doesn't look particularly promising. So let me get this down. Bendlet for 71. Not a good pickup, all bingo-y tiles, but far too many vowels. And I may struggle to resolve this. However, wow, fantastic bingo by opponent. A double-double, burning a blank and an S. So great start for my opponent, who now trails by just 2 points. I was commenting on this rack's vowel heaviness, thinking that possibly I should change. However, I do have some good 5-letter plays on my rack, Adoi and its anagrams, and I also have iodine through the N. So yeah, I have oidia down here. This is one of the anagrams, possibly the only one. I think Eido left the word list a while back. So that would be 27. Yeah, and iodine would only be 18. So this is a better play. And the rack leave isn't terrible, provided I don't get swamped with vowels. Is there anywhere better for oidia? Yes, there is. Gosh. I have Adoi across here for 34 points. Yep, that's certainly better. Anywhere else to consider? I don't think so. Great, I am not swamped with vowels. In fact, I have a bingo-y rack. I have Neatons. Slittier doesn't take an S, but T does. So Neatons at the moment plays in row J. Does it play anywhere else? It doesn't play in column 12 or column 10. I have neatness in row D, so I think I am bingoing next turn. Unless opponent perhaps plays through DI or NO in some spectacular fashion. Actually, it probably wouldn't have to be that spectacular. Just 3 tiles would do the job. Now, onto a T, or through a T, I would have C tenant. What about column 1 beginning with an A? Not seeing a bingo. I have the anti-prefix. What about the R of Slitia? Very bingo-y tiles. Well, I'm not seeing a bingo there. There could be one. No, not seeing it. Column 12 at the bottom, not a bingo lane because Uoi takes nothing after it. Now, should both bingo lanes remain available, which is better, and I think it has to be row D because it takes out this S. Okay, let me pause there because opponents obstructed row D with Akka. Good score, 36 points. So neatness can either have an E above Akka or an S, neither of which are good. So, has opponents play enabled Neatons to play in column 12? Yes, it has. Let me see what this scores. So that's 82 points. I am placing an N in the middle of row A, but that's only devalues the valuation of the play by 3 points, according to the rule of thumb. So what I'm comparing is 82 with what I would get in row J, 65, which is a 17-point difference. So this is a far superior placement. And it doesn't play anywhere else in column 12. I'm going with this. Not bad. Not a bingo here, but W and H go together quite nicely, and I do have a couple of vowels. And I have an 80-point lead. The N's on my rack duplicate the N in row A, which hampers my ability to sort out the duplicates on my rack should row A remain available. And it doesn't. Opponent triples in that spot for 122 points, so I now trail by 40 points. What to do? Absolutely fantastic bingo there by opponent. So I'm looking to play off H, W, and N. I can do that here for 31 points. Quite a nice rack leave. AINT goes well with the R and S of adorners. And just generally, it's a pretty good 4-letter set. And I'm not seeing anywhere else for my H, W, and N. I think the best I could do would be something like Whore in row B for 38 points, 7 more points, but keeping duplicate N. So, well, yeah, I think given that I'm behind, I prefer to keep the better rack leave. I'm going with this. Pretty good. All different tiles through an O. I would have Tomain. But is there a 7 with this rack? And I'm not sure there is. I have the man and men suffix. So what about this S? No, not seeing anything with that. How about the R? No. What else is there to consider? Well, there's the E of Neaton's. No. Okay, opponent suffering from vowel problems. So what else do I have to consider? Gosh, I've got a whole bunch of double letters. Let me consider the single floaters first. So how about my rack plus an A? No, absolutely no bingos have come to mind with this rack, which is surprising given how bingo-y it looks. So what about BI? Too many big tiles there. How about ED? Well, gosh, is pedimenta good? Impedimenta is good, I think. I think the thing to do is just see if this stays on. Pedimenta for 80. And it doesn't. So this rack plus ED, anagram of the non-word pedimenta. No, not seeing anything. How about NO? So I could have a play beginning non. No. How about DI? Again, I would have the pedi prefix. No. Now, do I have a double-double in column 5? Which isn't a bingo. I've given up on finding a bingo with this rack. 12 minutes on my clock. So I have mediant. That's 40 points and an okay rack leave. The only alternative to consider, I think, would be a play in row A, a 6-letter play. Probably getting my M or P on the double letter square, which I can do. Gosh, I had a flash of a 7-letter bingo come into my mind, but I think it was probably Picanti with a C rather than an M. So I have Pitman for 41, and I think this is the better play than the double-double because I think it's easier for my opponent to play in row A than for him to get a double-double. And only 2 E's in the bag, so the E on my rack could be quite handy. I'm going with this. Well, balanced, but non-bingo-y. If I kept an A by playing Pit Men, then I would have isogamic through an S, but no S in the right position. The N of Hewn is available as a bingo floater. And I do have the IC ending. But I'm not optimistic at all that there are any playable 8s with this rack. But I am looking at what's available. So no, I'm not seeing anything. Now, how about a double-double in column 5? Gosh, no real candidate endings coming to mind. I'm just thinking about how the play might begin. Nice score by opponent, who now leads by 14 points, but I'm on turn. Still 24 tiles to come, so plenty of action left in the game. What do I want to do here? Well, there's very little worth keeping, so I am looking to play off as many tiles as possible. But although I don't want to hang on to any tiles, there aren't tiles that I'm desperate to get rid of. I do want to split up the duplicate eye, but overall the tiles are fairly neutral. So it's a case of if I can use them to score, then I will. So I could play Kongi Eye through the N. And what's nice is that I'm retaining the E. I'm retaining an M for score. I'm getting 20 points, which is just about okay. Opponent may be tempted to play across from the C. I do still trail, so I'd like to keep the board open. Opponent may also be tempted to play down column 12 parallel to Congi I, which will open up the triple word squares in row O, or may do so. I am going with this. Great, I draw the Z, which is one of the power tiles. Always holds out the prospect of a big score. Opponent scoring steadily, 31 points for joy. He now leads by 25 points. And I can play Cuz, leaving quite a good 5-letter set. Not hugely bingo-y, but certainly does have bingo potential. And it's got scoring potential with the M and the P. Still the Q to come, which may be decisive. Now, is there anything better than Cuz? Just looking to see if I've got a play in column 12 onto this double letter square. That would create a real headache as to whether to make such a play, because opponent would be likely to score using one of the triple word squares, which would be a big boost. So this is what I'm thinking of, Cuz for 42. I think I'd need something pretty amazing to not make that play, but that's precisely what I should be looking for. 9 minutes on my clock. So, for example, a play down column 14, getting the Z tripled, would fit the bill, but I'm not seeing one. Just one S to come, but it's not on my rack. Biz is good. No, I'm not seeing anything better. I'm going with this. I draw one of the remaining E's, so there is just one of those in the bag. Onto a D, I would have impelled. No D available. And I'm not seeing anything through any of the other floaters. Now, column E, quite hot. I have an M and P for going underneath HO. I don't have anything for going underneath the J. But, for example, I could play Mel for 26 points. And I do actually have a lead at this point by 17 points, so super tight game. Through DE, I would have Millipede. Now, what about DI? Let me revisit column 5 for double-double potential. I've still got the Pedi prefix, but that hasn't been particularly helpful. No, I'm not seeing anything through that. It's the Q and 2 V's to come. They have the potential to absolutely wreck the game. Well, there goes one of the V's and one of the hot spots, and only 14 points. Fantastic. So, do I play Mel, or is there something better? And the final S could be significant. Vig does take an S and nothing else. ST only takes a Y, so column 13 not productive. I could play Elm down here for 20 points. Let me check the remaining vowels. 6 out of 19, so only a third of the bag are vowels. By playing off 2 tiles rather than 4, I'm reducing my chances of drawing the Q or the V. And the F isn't particularly useful either. Is this too pessimistic? I do lead. And it's 26 points for Mel. I am inclined to play Mel. I'm still retaining the same number of vowels. And I have an I for QI. Although, where would I play that? If I drew a U, well, the U and the Q would go well together. There is a U in cuz, which may be usable. Well, it would be. I would have peak in column 14 if I drew the Q. I am going with Mel. This also stops opponent scoring off the J with an A or an O. Wow, I draw the final U, but no Q. And I draw a ton of vowels. So just 3 vowels out of 15 tiles. And there aren't too many floating vowels on the board. There's the U of cuz, A of Neaton's, but they're not massively available. No bingo with this rack for me. But I do have the scoring tile in the P, and I lead by 29 points. So, what should my strategy be here? Very difficult. Very difficult. There's still a good bingo lane, row J, and if the opponent doesn't have any of the horrible tiles, he could have a bingo, but that would be a pretty fantastic rack that he's got. There are no E's out there. So this is a pretty bingo unfriendly pool. But given the nature of the board, if opponent were to bingo, I think he would be a strong favourite. And I think row J is pretty much the only bingo lane. I doubt that there are many bingos in column 1, possibly affronts. Maybe I should be doing something about row J. I'm not sure, it's so non-bingo-y. And we are fairly close, so it's not just a matter of stopping opponent from bingoing, it's a matter of maintaining that lead by scoring, and that's not an easy thing to do. I have a scoring tile in the P, but I haven't as yet identified anywhere good for it. P does go beneath DE, but I can't get it to score twice. ED hampers plays in row I because it only takes an H and an S, and I have neither. Otherwise, I could play across row I, taking out both bingo lanes. I guess I'm not too bothered about drawing the Q. The peak spot remains available, and I have a U on my rack, so maybe I should actually be trying to get it. And what's opponent going to be trying to do? If he doesn't have a bingo, maybe he'll try and create a bingo lane by playing down from the V or the G, which would be great, because it would give me more options for getting some score out of this rack and closing down whatever he's opened up. Row J is not a hugely great bingo lane. There are no double or triple word squares, but as a bingo is likely to use some high scoring tiles, it could easily hit the 70 mark. Opponent taking quite a while on this play, down to 9 minutes. So I still haven't seen anywhere for my P. Mel has taken out the double-double possibility in column 5, so that never became a reality. Nothing goes between L and DI, so I can't get value from playing Pew. I can't play my P in the top right. Opponent changes! Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Certainly not after all that thinking time. 8 tiles in the bag, opponent changes. Wow. And he changed 4 tiles. Now, what about playing through the Z? I could play Piezzo, 416. And part of the thinking here is maybe there are 8 tiles in the bag, so I'll be drawing half the bag. There must be a strong possibility that an opponent chucked back the Q. And if I draw the Q, I've got the QI spot. And only the B of the high-scoring tiles can go there. And if an opponent does block that spot and I draw the Q, well, I've got a U on my rack, so I should have options. Well, at the very least, I would have Souk in the top right. And 16 points is not bad. Yeah, and I quite like the idea of drawing quite a few tiles. I'm going with this. And I miss the Q. Gosh. Okay, and I draw another vowel. Nice play by opponent. Vig taking an A. I overlooked that possibility. Now I trail by 9. And opponent has got 6 consonants on his rack. What a beautiful, beautiful sight. So, surely my route to victory is simply going out in 2. Can I do that? Have I got that in my locker? And how long do I have to find it? 4 minutes. Pretty grim rack. So, as a start, I could play Vug for 22. And then I would have Fiod and Teed. That could be blocked, but not very well. Close to die off, I would need... Well, I'm not close enough. Let me forget about pursuing that thought. Yeah, opponent's surely going to struggle to block Fiod and Teed. And 22 points is good for Vogue. For Vug, rather. I do have Vogue on my rack and Vogued. So, I still have 3 minutes, acres of time. What about playing Vogued? Retaining just the F. This is 18 points. And Vug was only 4 more points. I was threatening Fiod for 15. But I've got Deaf for 11. And Few for 9. So I don't think I'm giving up terribly much. Am I offering much to my opponent with Vogued? And my preference for Vogued is that I had only identified 1 spot for Fiod, whereas there are multiple spots for just the F. 3 minutes on my clock. What else do I need to consider? I need to consider opponent's options. So Vogue gives me 18. I trail by 9. I get a lead of 9. What's the best opponent can do? And he's got the S. Are there any super hot S spots? No, I don't think so. So he's going to have to play through a vowel. I suppose he could play Fs. That's just nothing like enough, particularly with the count back that I'm going to get. I don't see any possible way I can lose this game. Vogued for 18. Just 9 points of lead, but I think it's going to be enough. I don't think Vogued has provided anything for my opponent. Possibly a playthrough NO and O, but even that isn't going to be enough for him. So, I've got 2 minutes on my clock, 7 minutes on opponents. Where's the best spot for my F? And I might as well do this methodically. F and F, 10. Def, 11. Arf, less. Not seen any other spots for just the F. F5 of 5. Ah, far for 10. So def is best for 11 and far for 10, and those cannot both be blocked. Yeah, opponent does play brew for 23, and that creates no new spot for my F. So I can play def for 11. And the final score, 421 for my opponent, 436 for me, a winning margin of 15 points, so a huge, huge win. Let's see what I missed. Wow, what a game. Always exciting when the triple's in play because it just is a massive influx of points for one party. Now it was me to go first. And I played Wex, and next was the alternative which retained just 3 consonants, but keeping the B and W together, not a good idea. Opponent's rack, a lot of vowels, plays UI, and I have bend-let, and there was just the one placement. Now, great rack for opponent. Bingos with Slittier, good spot, double-double. And this is my vowel-heavy rack, and I play Adoy. Opponent has drawn the second blank, and does have bingos. Wow, and they are all very tricky ones. Camarade, Parkades, and Krald. Opponent plays Acker. I have Neatons for 82, and I still like that, despite what happens now. Look at that, just the one triple available, but a ton of other bingos. So now I trail by 40. This is my rack, and I play Hewn for 31. I could have got 39 for Thor underneath Adorners, but that's keeping INN. So how does INN compare to AINT? Well, AINT is quite a nice rack, despite it not being consonant heavy. I would still think it's worth 6 or 7 points. INN, I would think, well, it might be about 0, probably no worse than -1. So it's possible that AINT is not 8 points better than INN, but it's definitely better by, I would say, at least 5 points, so they're close, and in such situations I prefer the better rack leave. Opponent's rack, still got a ton of vowels, plays Aurii, and this was a rack which raised my hopes, but I couldn't see a bingo, and there is none. And I played Pitman for 41, Mediant being the alternative I considered. So I lead by 15. Opponent's rack plays Horsey. And I have this rack. Wow, come, that's quite nice. But horrible rack leave GII. So I play Congi for 15 fewer points, keeping EM, which is quite interesting. Because, wow, and it's interesting because of the rack leaves. EM is a much better rack leave than GII, but is it 15 points better? EM must be worth, I would say, about 3 or 4 points plus. GII? Well, I'd say between -5 and -10. So it could be pushing 15, but it could be as little as 7 or 8. So, Congi may have been the better play, I don't know. Now, opponent's rack. He plays Joy, and I trail by 25, but I have the Z, And I have cuz for 42, J12, Wimple, wow. Okay, well, placing an E in the middle of row O, not a huge fan of that. And retaining the U, so I like my play of cuz. Not a nice rack for opponent, plays Vig. And now this is my rack. And I play Mel for 26, and that looks fine. Opponent's rack, and he's beginning to struggle now with very consonant heavy racks, and he trails by 30 points, so he's not in good shape. And he changes, so look at this, he actually changed with this rack, but it wasn't because he had the Q. So I guess he kept AST and changed BCGV. But he could have got 36 points for Scab, and he only trailed by 30, so I'm not sure changing is the right play there, or the best play. Now, so I have this 30-point lead, and suddenly I'm on turn, and I play Piezzo, and I could have played Peased, keeping OU, turning over one more tile. Definitely worth considering. A14 Rout, also quite nice. However, it's blocking this U spot. I have a reasonable expectation that I may draw the Q. So I'm burning my U and blocking the U, and there's nowhere on the board for QI, so I think my play of Piezzo has merit, but that doesn't mean it's best. Now opponent draws the Q, but he's got some nice tiles, and he makes a great play of Canat. But at this point, it's all over because he draws the rest of the bag, and they are 6 consonants. So, C14, interesting idea. C14. Fiod in the very spot where I was contemplating playing Vug. Well, I'm not sure Vug or Go now goes anywhere. But one thing I didn't consider was playing Fiod first. Well, then opponent could have played Brew. So I played Vogued, which guaranteed me the win, or so I thought. And the best opponent can do is Brew. Actually, I think Examiner 1 is now working. So we can see if Brew was indeed best for opponent. And it wasn't. Okay, G14, Fub and Oboe. So it's not just an N, which goes between 2 O's. The opponent could have played Fub and Oboe. And that would have scored 5 fewer points than Brew. Yeah, but count back differs by 6. And finally, it was my rack, and the best I could do was Def for 11. So, what a game. Absolutely tremendous stuff. Great play by my opponent. I thought I was in a reasonably strong position after Neaton's, but he then lays down a triple, and suddenly I'm on the ropes. But I think I had a kinder run of tiles in the middle to the end game, and my opponent was struggling a bit with the vowel shortage, and that was enough to secure me the victory. But super tight game, just 15 points separating us at the end. So many thanks to my opponent for a great battle. I hope you enjoyed watching that game, and I will see you next time.